is a sign that I'm in a transport hub. This is a very busy, centralized transport link, hub, destination, terminus, however you want to call it, in London. It is vital for the capital. It is very important for the many people that commute here and that also live here because they need links out of the city in order to do their business here. Obviously, to meet family, but to have a reasonable lifestyle. Being cooped up in a capital city in any large urban environment is not advised, especially residents in London, especially those that have lots of responsibilities. They need a way out as much as loads of people need a way in to take part in the vast economic activity that is hosted here in London, the capital city of England, the largest, most prosperous city in the United Kingdom. Now, this presents an issue, as I've discussed before in this channel, in terms of policing, but also in terms of national security. Your average police officer is now concerned with more than just your street corner, the corner of the street that's just near to your house. They're more concerned than the street that you live on. All of our streets are included in policing. It is a vital part of the social contract, but there's more to our life than a very localized area. Our footprint individually has grown to a much larger size and influence and scope than 30 years previous. So police officers are having to be trained. They need to handle increasingly difficult situations with dark characters involved, people that travel great distances to try to cause trouble in other communities, not their local neighborhood, not the place that you think they could dominate. They're coming in to your community, to a place where they think they can hide, but also get in on a local scene, a back alley of uh, corruption or of taking value out of people's pockets. Also, from their lives, we know that crime can escalate if there's enough support behind that for more violent types, for more intrusive types, and for types that have confrontation involved. House I grew up in, where I lived, sometimes it was burgled, not often, but sometimes. Thankfully, we didn't really come up against any house invaders. We didn't really have to confront or challenge people that wanted to be more aggressive, more assertive on foot. But that is changing statistically. That can now be more likely. People moving around in London, the high value properties here, the business activity that takes place around the clock. It brings in characters that are more willing to be more violent, but also it being London, it is twice or three times as bad individually, depending on who you encounter. They have much more in mind than before. Now, where we are, crime can become a matter of national security, and that has now begun to inform the way that policing is understood and done. Some forms of policing outside of London are now part of the national security remit because people have seen that it can cause interruption. Yes, it's disturbing, but it's also disruption. And that has a knock on effect in other parts of the UK, considering our economy has broadened out, considering that most, if not all of us, are involved in the fortunes of our respective nation within the UK. Crime in some parts of the country, one place definitely being Birmingham, is treated now as being part of a national security remit. So when I've looked at policing in this train station, when I've looked at policing activity in other parts of the capital, I've taken that information on board anyway. In the back of any police officer's head here, and obviously in police staff rooms, there is conversation, there is thinking about what something might result in. Terrorism is a main focus of any attempt to counteract threats to national security in the context of policing. Terrorism has become a subject of study. It's something that most police officers know about. Certainly in London, every police officer is capable of playing their part in trying to stop it. So national security and policing are overlapping. And some people have suggested that there is a convergence where the two may become one and the same. We might now have to move on from even policing being a much more upscaled, better paid job, and we may have to see it as being something more like a profession, more like a trade, something that we need people to take on as being a serious effort, a career, a vocation, that type of work, because we now value the effect that it has. As we pay in to some types of policing, we see a payoff that is far greater than the amount that we have to give out of a public budget. That's a hint, it's a signal that policing is changing form, and that as officers and planners have changed tact, that there is more value derived from its activity. Train stations, buses, airports are coming up often in the narrative about terrorism, but as national security becomes a focus also of police chiefs, a lot of other places that are under threat will come into play too. It may be that some types of neighborhood will be involved. It may be that some types of schooling or types of office space will also be incorporated into that understanding. So once uh, somebody gets a job, maybe you move on to a new job that is better paid, you might feel like you're working in a much different environment because somehow the company you work for is a target. Maybe people are scoping out its business interests, are looking into who makes the decisions, and that may be worked into how a terrorist sees their activity and the reason why they believe they have to undertake an attack or a threat, a ransom demand, or even hacking, as that also seems to be a part um, of their day-to-day activity as well. So human life, as it's becoming more complex, needs to be better understood by people that work for us in those types of realms. Their planning meetings have to cover these issues, and they have to progress and mature their concepts so that we are covering these greater matters. National security has been described to me as a whole different ball game apart from policing. So the upgrade to that work is going to be huge. It's a huge leap into the future for that to be possible. But as work has been done here and progress has been made to try to cover the ground that was already looking to be a challenge, there is yet more to do. The definition has to be filled out. So, what policymakers have been looking into, there are hints, there are signals of this being discussed in Parliament. Politicians are going over some of the detail, which groups need to be prescribed so that people here are more aware and more empowered to deal with people that are causing trouble in particular ways. In other languages, using other countries as their method, utilizing other tactics that are not so familiar to your average Bobby, but they also need to be confronted by that staff member, by that employee. I take an interest in how places like this are run, how they function, who is working as well, because it's vital to have the right staff and not have to watch your back all the time. Vital to make sure that the remit of the police can extend to looking at who is behind the CCTV cameras. Police don't own all of these cameras. They're not watching the images themselves. Obviously, staff are employed to do that in particular, but they need to be reachable. They need to have integrity. They need to be held accountable. They need some regulation. So that will come into the mix as well. These places will begin to change. Great British Railways, which is coming in to run most of the rail network, will have to look at how they upgrade stations to make them more a part of the national security infrastructure. They'll have to liaise with police officers and staff and strategists and their planners to make sure they're working together, that people are working with people. Not a matter of opening the train door, it's a matter of making sure that autonomous policing works on the train as well as apart from the train, that People can be followed, they can be stopped, they can be questioned without needing permission all of the time, getting rid of the paperwork and streamlining the process so that more of us are put out of the way of the threats that are the greatest at the moment.